Sean Campus, welcome in. I hope everybody's having a good beginning to the week and and is off to I don't know, peaceful holidays, keeping peaceful holidays going on. Um, so I wanted to talk to you guys today about giving up too soon. Yesterday I was reading and it gave a story about a person who discovered gold and found, it found it. It was a big deal um, where they were at, and I believe it was in Colorado. So they found the gold. They were all pumped about it. They hid the idea that they found it, and they went back east and found somebody that would help them out as far as financing and getting all the tools that it would take and machinery that it would take to recover that gold. And so they got it all. They got it all taken care of. Um, and the machinery was there. They got it all. So it cost money, but it was a loan that they got. And then once they got that loan, um, they're like, well, we'll use the gold to pay that loan back and some. So they uncovered all kinds of gold once they got back to Colorado. And then whenever they uncovered all that gold, they were able to pay back what it was that they had loaned or had got taken a loan for. And then, just as they had been able to pay everything back, they ran out of being able to find gold. And so, um, the way it worked is that they were like, man, this vein that we found for gold, like there isn't any more left. And so, sure enough, that person was like, man, it's doomsday. Like, yeah, I found a whole lot of gold, but it was just enough to break even, basically. So they gave up. They said, okay, well, there's no more gold here and we're done, and they sold their equipment for cheap because that's the money that they could make back, a little bit of it at least. And then they sold it to a person who was more familiar with the land than they were. And that person did uh, the finding out and the education pieces to figure out like where the next vein was of gold. And they found gold and struck gold and made it rich and had very little expenses compared to that person who had given up. So it really makes me think about um, different things in our lives that we may be giving up too soon on and not having the right information about. And because of all the work, we're jaded by all the work that we're doing. And we think that, like, man, I've done so much and it's been so hard. We don't even think to take or figure out what the next step is. I remember um, listening to, and this is prior to my divorce, like, I remember listening to a situation of somebody else who was going through a divorce, and they had concluded that, me and my partner just aren't, we're just not compatible. And we've both been able to, like, just admit that and then say that. And, we've tried everything. And I think in that scenario, and I don't, we don't really know the backstory of all that scenario, but what for me it did was at that time give permission to give up, right? And everybody's gonna have their own story around, um, when you've given up before it's time. But the most important thing is that you start understanding, like, sometimes you justify the reasons that you're going to give up, based on limited knowledge or based on not knowing. And sometimes you don't know until you do more figuring out about the scenario. Like, this person wasn't very far away from um, being able to strike gold and have more, but because of the limited knowledge and probably all the wear of the situation and what it took to even get to that point, was weary that there would be more. And that's kind of interesting because I think even in life, um, you know, you go into a point, so you go into a situation so hopeful, like this person was able to gather enough energy from other people and excitement about like I found something and joined me on this journey, and had obviously, been to a point of searching for it to begin with. And even in that scenario, even knowing that like they had been to that situation of, look, I don't know if it's here, but I'm going to go ahead and keep searching anyways, and then finding it, still got weary um, of thinking that there wouldn't be another opportunity or that they couldn't find it again, right? And part of that is that the search is different. So in the beginning, the search was like, well, let me just see if I can strike gold to begin with, right? And that's a different kind of search than the second one that says, look, I already found the gold, and there might be a limited amount, and there may not be more because I found it all. And there's some mentality aspects in there that I think are really important, for us in our relationships and us in life and in our money and our business. Like there's a lot of different opportunities for us to look at. Is the things that got us to a certain point in one situation won't necessarily get us to a point in the next situation, especially if it's not fueled by something else. So if I go back to that relationship concept that I was telling you guys about, for me, and I think it'll be helpful for us in other circumstances, is that the limited knowledge that I had, um, allowed me to be influenced by somebody else's experience of not goodness or not willingness or unwillingness to try and push further, right? And as I gain experience or as I know more, I start understanding that that period or that moment in life isn't, um, going to be the definition for what it has to be later on. And so what it requires of all of us is just to be able to learn more and know more. I don't know, and again, every situation will be different. I don't know when it's time to quit, and I don't necessarily know when it's not time to quit. But what I do know is we need to be able to gather more information. We need to be able to learn more. We need to be acting on something more than just our emotions. And I think that a lot of times is what is the idea that you gave up too soon. Some other scenarios that pop in my mind is I think like there wouldn't be any kind of Michael Jordan if, and I'm a sports person for people who don't know me, but there wouldn't be any kind of Michael Jordan if giving up was, um, a scenario, right? And so the idea that he gets cut from a basketball team in high school, for a lot of people, even, as I coach basketball junior college, like any little disappointment for a lot of people means like them stopping or them quitting or not, continuing. But beyond us going through that moment is some other situation or opportunity for us. And what are we willing to do to get past the hardship and commit to being able to learn more and do more? So it's one thing for us to, give up based on emotions. It's another thing for us to be directed by principle. And I think that that's the distinction that you can make if you're going to say like Thomas, but I, for us to keep doing something over and over again, that means insanity. And especially, we're getting the same result where it's not going to change. Right. And what I would say is, well, you have to actually look at what it is that you are doing over and over again. Right. So if you're going back to the same marriage conversation and trying to get somebody to be different and it's not working, right? Then yeah, I mean, to me, it's going to be hard for you to capture a different way of being in the relationship. That's it's going to be true. But I think if you start applying principles, because principles are things that we know we can stand on, like they don't change. If we can start applying principles in our relationships, then what happens? Is it the same outcome of we're not compatible anymore, right? And the same thing with everything else, like in business, in competition, right? Like in all those things, what do I need to be applying that I know will be useful? And then also, what am I saying that I'm applying that I'm really not? Right? Because sometimes somebody will say, like, well, this is not working. right? Well, no, that's not working, and neither are you, right? And that's the issue. The real issue is it doesn't feel good to me, so I'm not going to keep doing it, right? And that becomes a real issue for us. And so when our feeling good or not feeling good is the measuring stick for what we're trying to do, we may give up too soon. When the principles and our knowledge that we are achieving is grown by the principles are in place, then I don't think that one that we'll give up too soon, and two, I don't think that if we were to change something that we were doing to align with principle, that it would be something that would be to our detriment. So I think it's a really big deal for us to look at, like, man, what am I giving up too soon on? In my mind, how am I giving up? And then what do I need to change, or what do I actually need to let go of or give up on that isn't helpful to me realizing some of the outcomes? And so if we go back to the initial story that I'm telling you about this person who was looking for the gold, it was less about the emotional, like, man, I just did all this work and I just broke even and I'm upset, and more about, man, if I found it one time, I can find it again. What do I need to do in this circumstance to make sure that I can realize that outcome? And that gives us a different kind of chance to belong in the scenarios. It helps our relationship survive. It helps us get to the places that we want to. We don't want to give up before we get to realize our goal and our opportunities in life. All right, you guys have a good week.